kind of didn't expect that many people. I
Oh,
thought,
oh, there's going to be folks.
oh, we see her every week, you know.
All right. So I'm going to start talking to you, and then you can let people in as they
Yes.
filter in. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, first of all, welcome, Daniela. Um, I am so honored to be doing this. It is such a treat. This is a long time coming. I think a lot of people agree, and I'm very honored to be in the seat that gets to ask you questions and celebrate you. Um, so okay, so first thing I want to say is, do you know how many of these you've done? Do you have any idea the number of how many of these you've done?
Yes. We're almost on 200.
Yeah, it is insane. Um, and I think, I don't know if you realize what an archive you have created, what a service you have done for the community to preserve and glean this insane collection of information and talent in one place that just doesn't it is an oral history of the art form of certainly the boom of this industry. How did this come to you? How did this idea, where was the gestation of this concept? How did that first arrive?
Um, it's kind of, I mean, I've told this a few times. Basically, I'm good at things I don't think about. The less intention I give to something, the better I do, because then you're attached to your gut. So I was on that big narrators group, and just reading people's posts on the day that ACX stopped paying us for giveaways.
Hmm.
And people were just pissed off and upset and unhappy, and COVID was just starting, and everyone was like, and I remember somebody said, well, that's it, now all those new people are going to come and take our jobs. and, and I thought, okay, great, so what do you do when you're feeling threatened by the other? There's always someone we don't know very well coming to like take something away from us. You become friends, because you're never threatened by your friends. So
Yeah.
I'd started a few narrator groups, like 10, 12 people, and they were all running really well and everyone was happy. So I thought, let's start a group where we can just, it's what we call the old school calls. Um, and 7 of us, pop-up calls, first one to comment goes. 7 of us show up, and the rules were, you're running in quickly to a coffee shop, sliding in the door sideways, and your best friend's there. You haven't seen him for ages, and you want to like blurt out all the important things in your life. And completely safe place. Nothing ever goes out of the call. And each person, each of the 7 people gets a chance to say exactly where they are. And I've got great books. Some people find that hard to say on social media, or they don't know how to say it, or they feel bad, or I'm in a dry spell. That came up a lot. I don't know what to do, or I'm scared of COVID, or, I mean, it was, by the end of the call, it was intense and it was weird.
Mm.
And by the end of the call, 7 people completely throwing their heart out on a page with no restrictions it was kind of magical and weird. I mean, I've made some friends on those calls that, like, I don't think if we hadn't met that way, I'd feel like they're lifelong friends
Hmm.
because of that 1 hour. And then one time I remember there were 2 people, Griffin and Melissa K. Benson, 2 different times. And I just wanted them to tell me more. I was like, what? Well, okay, now wait, explain this more. And fascinating backgrounds. And that kept happening. And I thought, you know what, will you just show up and let me ask you lots of questions so you can tell me all this stuff, because I want to hear it. And I
Hmm.
said, we'll only do 1 or 2. And I kept saying that for like a year. And then it was so much fun. I didn't do any more old school call. I mean, I did them a few times. We did one recently, but they're really intense and they're exhausting, because you're really kind of like letting it all out, and that's
Yeah.
tiring. But these calls stuck. And when
Mm.
do you stop getting a chance to talk to some amazing person that's going to give you their life story and you get to share some of that energy. You know what I mean? There's too many people to
Yeah.
grill.
How do you at some point there must have been times where you were like, I'm just burnt out, I can't do this, I don't have time. How do you balance this? Because it's a huge commitment. You're now doing this with authors as well. How do you hold, and it's not nothing on your voice. I mean, you're also talking, right? How do you hold space for your own art and this and control that balance? How do you make it all work for yourself?
I made a rule in the beginning that recording comes first. Recording always has to come first. I have to fill my own well before I can, do this. This is a quote unquote hobby. The thing is, I had a friend back in LA. I had a lot of friends like this in LA, but that was so amazing. I'm not going to say what, but they were so amazing at one form of art. So amazing. Everyone knew. They were like, they could have made a fortune. But what they wanted to do, they weren't having any success at. And I have had a lot of times in the last few years where I've gotten scared because I can do these interviews. I can interview anyone in the world. I mean, I'm just saying it. I can interview anyone in the world and bring the best out because I see the best.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the call, most of the time they see the best as well. And sometimes they didn't. But then sometimes when you're recording and you don't maybe get the level, the thing you wanted or the validation you wanted, and then everyone's like, oh my God, you're this amazing interviewer. But you're like, but I'm a narrator. I'm a narrator. Hello. And it gets a little scary because you get like the feeling that the universe is telling me I'm good at this, but I don't want to do this. I'm a narrator. But I narrate during the day. It's my priority. And I've got the admin and everything down pat. And most times I'm okay. I only ever had to cancel when I recently fractured my knee, my shoulder, and cracked my ribs. And even that night, Talmadge will tell you, I emailed her and said, I can prop myself up. I think I can do it. But yeah, I can, because when do you stop? It's like a drug, getting to connect with people. When do you choose to like, oh, I won't do that anymore?
Yeah. I absolutely relate to that, seeming to excel at one thing in the public eye and yet having a passion in another direction and having to try and sustain that. I think it's certainly not easy, it kind of reminds me of something Johnny Heller always jokes about, which is, he puts together all these workshops and everything and brings all these coaches in. And he always says, I'm the only one out of this that never gets any coaching work, which I thought was really funny. Okay. So now you don't have to answer these questions, but, out of everybody you've interviewed, so about 200 people, who were the one or ones you were the most nervous to interview?
I've never been nervous. This one. But because I have a perception that I'm too much, and sometimes I'm afraid I'm going to say things. It's a human. I don't fit into herds, but it's a human need to not be rejected by the flock, and every single thing out of my mouth is pretty much too authentic. So this one got me a little nervous because I don't have control.
What was there an interview that surprised you the most? That was the one that you took a while to recover from, or that really hit you, or you weren't expecting it to sort of resonate on a personal level in the way it did, and that one sticks with you?
No, but there were people that surprised me. There were people that I thought would be one way, and then they got on the call and they were another way. Like, off the top of my head, it happens a lot because you never know a person just from their social media. But Paul Heitch, I thought he was like a quiet kind of, I just thought, he's just quiet, like, talks when he talks. And oh my God, I was blown away. I was like, everything he said, it was so simpatico. I was like, oh my God, you're like my favorite person on earth. I didn't expect not to think he was amazing, but I was surprised at how different he was in real life than on social media, and
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a very sweet guy. And is there a piece of advice that came out of these that has stuck with you the most?
Oh God, so much. I've literally changed.
Do any of them come to mind now?
Yeah, so much. Hillary Huber, thank you, Hillary, for saying she's never, ever, ever missed a deadline. So I credit Hillary. Gideon said that as well. He said that he's a known commodity with the publishers because he's never missed a deadline. That really struck me. Anne Flosnick, so many things. I could tell you hundreds. Anne Flosnick saying that that the numbers don't matter because guess what? Because I was at that point that like I have such and such books and I have to have such and such books. And she was like, you can have thousands and they start disappearing and you can never control them. They come, they go, and nobody cares. And the only one that notices is you. Karen Cummins for everything. For everything. I mean, basically, every time negative Daniela comes out, I guiltily avoid Karen because I know better, but knowing better stops her coming out as often because she's such a good influence. Just so many people. You don't want to leave anyone out.
No, of course.
You know what I mean? Because there's so many. Johnny Heller, of course.
But I think you're allowed. Here's the thing: every single person you've had on there, you've had on this show, someone is going to say something that's going to resonate with someone, and that doesn't mean that what resonated with you lessens what resonated with anybody else. So I'm just interested in, what hit Daniela's buttons. What were the things that were your wake up moments? And I think that's really, really, fascinating. So we're gonna sort of, so what I think is something I think that's fascinating, and I want to delve into these bits and pieces a bit more if you're willing, but for someone who has a background in clowning and a background in burlesque, right? We're talking about two performance arts that could not be more physical and frankly could not be more nonverbal. How did you go from someone who was drawn in that very, very physical, body-connected direction to something where, and I believe narration needs to be physical, but how did you get drawn into a direction where your audience doesn't even get to appreciate or connect to the physical aspect of your acting and your art? How did that branch happen to you?
To me, actually, I never thought of, you're really good. I never thought of this. Okay. So I was acting and I was showing up in like, the agency. I was in London with this like job and I was showing up in like, be in this sitcom, be in this commercial, do this, do that. And I was doing all those. And I was starving myself and I'd lost like a lot of weight and I was like working out like I was like crazy. I was like, I was crazy. I was in starvation mode at all times. And I thought, why do I not feel good? I was supposed to feel good. I worked this hard. I starved myself for a year. I've worked, walked 3 hours a day, kung fu. I had a trainer. I did kung fu. I did everything. Why do I feel horrible? And that's why I pushed myself into clowning and into burlesque, because I think that and I am very good at this. If I don't like something or I'm afraid of it, I usually force myself to do it because then I need to jump into it. And then if I don't like it, I don't like it. And in burlesque, they actually at one point lined me up against a mirror with 20-year-olds in corsets and drew outlines, had me stand behind each one to show me that I was I was like the second thinnest in the class because I kept thinking I was fat. And I had a lesson from one of the burlesque stars that night on the train, and we were like getting on the tube going home. And this is what brought me to clowning as well this night and to everything else. She was like, right, I have to show you, don't I? Because it was that night I was like, but I don't feel beautiful like I'm supposed to feel. I thought I've worked my whole life to get to this point. I should feel amazing. I'm fit. I'm tough. And she got on this tube and she literally like took up a stance. And you know that thing they say about Marilyn Monroe, where she was walking down the street and she put Marilyn on. This burlesque star put Candy Kisses on this tube. She's wearing a hoodie and like stretch pants or leggings or something. And the energy filled the tube car. She just walked up and down the tube a few times. That's all she did. And there were these tourists crying, clapping, crying, literal tears when she finished. And people were applauding her and everyone was her friend. And by the time we walked off, everyone in that tube car was just like, and this is London at like 10 o'clock at night. Everyone in the tube car was just joyful and happy. And I wanted that. And I don't think it's very different from narrating, because it's not what you use your voice or your body. It's your energy. It's your energy and it's your stardust, and we have it. And I see little glimpses of it. And then we get buried with stupid crap and we ignore our stardust and we don't channel our energy. And you can feel it when someone does it. And I wanted that. And sometimes out of like 250 books, I've had maybe a few minutes of that energy. So to me, it's not verbal or physical. It's all from inside.
Wow, that's amazing. How did you if you're okay talking about it, how did you get drawn into the burlesque? How did that come to you? What were your favorite pieces of music? What do you miss about it? What do you think it what do you think it brings that you carry from that part of your life into your work now? What does it give you, having been able to be that in touch with your own physical side? You know, how did that all happen? Because I think it's fascinating, and I think it's just a brilliant art form.
It is. It's, and I did compare as well. The announcer for burlesque, because I was obsessed with cabaret when I was a little girl, and in here we're all beautiful. All the women are beautiful, and and the showgirls, and I grew up with that. I grew up spending summers in Italy, and all it was La Dolce Vita, all the actresses and movie stars with their gorgeous cigarettes on the balcony. And I think I've spent my life chasing glamour. And I'm obsessed with it. The burlesque, the hurly-burly shows, and then I got into it. I went and took a class, in Covent Garden. And a lot of it was a reaction to this horrible, rigid job I had that I thought, well, you have to have it, because it's like a cult once you're in those corporate places. They tell you, you'll lose your pension, you'll die, nobody will ever hire you again, and we all hate you anyway. It's that kind of thing. So it was a reaction. And the movie Burlesque was coming out, I think, around that time. I can't remember. And the teachers were wonderful, and the outfits were wonderful, and the circus contraption was my favorite. I'm just obsessed. But it was the music was wonderful. All the things I used to love, all the movies I grew up watching, all the people, Elvis Presley, Cabaret, Barbara Streisand, all the proper talent, and the people would get on stage, and there was boylesque. It wasn't just women. It wasn't just sex. It was beautiful. I mean, it's weird to me that there's a world that people wouldn't get how, jewels and rhinestones, beautiful things, and they were so generous. They weren't jealous.
Yeah. And that's it's fascinating to hear that there wasn't that sort of competitive or jealousy or whatever, which is something that, interestingly enough, I think, we find hopefully quite a bit in this career, that I think this community is very unique in that, in the performing arts.
Yeah.
How did the clowning, not how did the clowning happen? Because you sort of spoke about that. Tell me about the clowning training. Where did you do that? How extensive was it? What did it unlock in you? What are you glad that it's given you in life?
Okay, so now I'm going to embarrass myself because every time this comes up, I have to look up the name and then email it to myself so I'll remember the next time it comes up, because he was quite a famous clown.
Okay.
I want to say Jerry Rafferty, but I'm just so bad with names. I sound like a liar.
We forgive you. We forgive you.
Thank you. But I showed up. I just took like a clowning intensive weekend or something is how it started.
Mm.
I used to clown. I used to clown for kids shows when I was back home in California. It was like a part-time job, and I did it for like 5 years because I worked at like a Storyland and then that, children's theater. And I used to be a clown for kids shows. So I always did, the paint, the dress up, and the performing for kids. So I wanted to go back to it. I've always been obsessed with the circus and everything. I kind of wish I could have run away with the circus. But so I signed up for this class, and it was red nose clowning. It was very, very physical, and it was like an intensive thing. And then I went on and I did like 3 months over the course of that summer. And I performed a few times but then burlesque took all my attention, and also clowning was very physical. And you can't have any embarrassment or self-consciousness about your body.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so hard for me. It was so hard for me. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, being like very self-conscious about my body my whole life. It was, and yeah, you had to play. A lot of it was play, and I'm not good with play. I was the child that was like, do not make me touch that Play-Doh, and who is going to clean this up? And I was just not, I would like ditch recess so I didn't have to play with others. So, it was the most challenging thing I've ever done, ever. And I can't say I was amazing at it, but I can say I learned.
Yeah. Not being great at playing with others is it's ideal for an audiobook narrator, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of the ideal career path.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me that, if you asked somebody about, hypothetically, someone who was physically, uncomfortable in their body and had, dysmorphia issues or whatever, and you said to them, which would be easier for them, burlesque or clowning? Who on earth would think you'd say burlesque? That's so amazing to me.
But burlesque is comedy. There's only 2 seconds at the end where everything's off, and it's comedy. It's comedy.
Absolutely.
And everyone else is like different shapes and sizes. So everything is okay in burlesque. Everybody is beautiful in burlesque.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that sort of you found those paths while you were in London, because having lived there and having lived in the States, there is an openness to that kind of entertainment there. There is a celebration of the camp, the gaudy, the even all the way to, even if you get into, this isn't quite the same thing, but like in the way, for instance, Britain has been celebrating the pantomime dame for centuries, and here people in the States are freaking out about a person in drag reading a children's story when the Brits have been doing that for centuries. So do you think, talk to me about what these two cultures gave you. Talk to me about, being a child from both ponds. What that I relate to that. What feels like, what pieces of those experiences do you think have sort of affected you the most or make you feel the most at home in the two different worlds?
Well, I mean, it made me realize something. You made me remember something. In LA, it started in LA because in LA, if you're a girl, I don't know if it's changed now, but if you're a girl in LA and you walk anywhere, you're followed by a dirty old gross guy in a stupid car. It's trying to scare you. And I
Hmm.
didn't have a lot of money when I moved to LA, and I had to like do jobs where like I'd have to come home late at night. I was always like scared somebody was going to like murder me. You know, it's because you're walking in a dodge, you've got maybe 3 blocks of a dodgy neighborhood you're having to walk in. And I was outside a club and some guy was hassling me, and he'd been hassling me. I'd gotten off the bus and I was like trying to catch my next bus, and he'd been hassling me and like really kind of scaring me. And there was it was some drag night, and a bunch of drag queens came out and literally saved me, pulled me into the club, told the guy off and sent him shipping, and became my friends. So that's always been to me, you know, a love. It's I think that may be where it started, you know,
Hmm.
aside from all the books I read and everything.
Yeah.
I forgot your actual question. Sorry.
Well, no, no, no. That was part of an answer. Talk to me about the being a child of England and America, of those two experiences. What you think, what is home about each one of them? I don't know how much time you spend in both. Talk to me because as a, I have bounced around both locations, so
Well, I
I'm
have to
interested.
be, it wasn't England, it was Italy. My father
Okay.
is from Rome. So we grew up very much half a year in Rome, half a year in Fresno, California. And
Hmm.
that's quite a difference.
Yeah.
And to me, and my mother was always so, my parents were like always madly in love. So my mother was in love and happy living her best life. And they had their glamorous friends and photographers, you know, everyone telling me I'm beautiful, I'm going to be a movie star. And then you go to Fresno, which is a lovely place. So we stopped when I was like a teenager because there was the perpetual, where are we going to end up living forever whenever you've got parents from different countries. And we ended up in America. And then I spent the years feeling like trapped, like there's a more glamorous life and I'm not living it. And
Hmm.
when I was 18, I moved to LA and met my husband, who's from Glasgow.
Right.
And I'm not saying I heavily encouraged him to move here, but I always have wanted to live in London. So, but I think I know I say it's Rome and not England, but I don't think it's different. I think when you grow up with a foot in both ponds, you become a different kind of person. You're
Yeah,
not,
I absolutely agree.
yeah,
Yeah. It's funny that you say glamour. Glamour seems important to you. I
yeah,
think I think inside in a weird way. I don't know what glamour is inside, but it seems like inside and out.
yeah.
You talk about loving the sequins and the sparkle and the fantasy and it feels like you bring that into life and you bring that even metaphorically into the way you relate to people. You want sparkle, you
I
know.
do. I do. I want all my friends that come on Cup of Joe are famous and amazing. Somebody told me, "Oh, you're the queen of hyperbole." I'm not. That's how I see them. I don't why would I want to go to a beige office with boring people? People at COVID were like going on about they miss their friends at the coffee machine. They're not my friends. They're like people that have nothing in common with me.
Hmm.
I want to I want to talk to art. I want to talk to people living on the edge. I want my friends to be Bukowski and Johnny Heller, and I just want to those moments you're alive. You know, you dress up, you have a wonderful meal, you have amaretto, you have glamorous friends doing exciting things, you travel to places, you go on cruises and wear gorgeous outfits. You know, that life. I don't understand why we don't get much of it. It's like when you're a kid and you go on holiday, and I remember I always thought this, why are we going home? We're so happy. Why is it we're going to spend 4 days being happy and the rest of the
Yeah.
time going home. So yeah.
It's very funny you say that, because that's literally what Rich and I did. When Rich and I had to choose a place to move, when we had to kind of completely up, our life was in upheaval, we literally chose to move where we go on vacation, because we always went on vacation to Disney World, and we moved 14 minutes from it. So that resonates to me a lot. So when you're in the States, what do you miss about London? And when you're in London, what do you miss about the States?
I haven't been to the States very much.
Really?
I've only been back twice.
Is there something
since
you miss?
2002.
Is there something you miss? You miss food?
Oh my God, I miss food so much. It does not taste the same over here. I just spent way too much on C's candy. I'm embarrassed to admit how much eggnog, fresh eggnog. Nancy, I didn't look at the chat. I'm not allowed to, but yes, fresh eggnog. I miss the food. I miss the dream of America, Thanksgiving and Christmas, even though that wasn't my reality. I really quite like the dream of it.
Yep.
I miss that kind of thing. I miss the Americanness of America, and the bigness of the buildings, and I find it more beautiful, the spaciousness, because this isn't my home. I'm always going to be homesick. I'm always going to be homesick, no matter what happens. But I'm not going to live in Fresno.
What's your favorite spot in London? What's your favorite place to go to just be
Madame Jojo's. Madame Jojo's.
Fabulous.
I performed there. Madame Jojo's is my favorite. Do you know Desperately Seeking Susan with Madonna?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know the nightclub she's got
yes.
That, when I first saw Madame Jojo's, I was like, oh my God, I'm in Desperately Seeking Susan. It's like a piece of history. It's the best place in the entire world. It's closed now. I don't know if it's reopened.
Mine is very weird. Mine is in I think it's the National Portrait Gallery, the giant picture of Lady Jane's execution. There's that giant, it's like, it's because it is one of the, it just is it's the most stunning painting I've ever seen. And I've always been drawn to that story, but it's just so massive, and there's a bench right in front of it, and you can just sit and like look at it, and it's like life size. Like the people are like life size, and you just kind of can feel like you're just like literally looking through a window into it's just, I'll never forget that and being there. But anyway,
it's one of your spots in the world. I think we all have a spot that feels like home.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about narration.
Okay.
So you started in 2013. So this is your 10-year anniversary of narrating, right?
No, 2000. Oh yeah. I guess because I was recording for the Royal National. Yeah. I always forget that. I always think of starting when I started working from home, but I guess I have been narrating a long time.
What was that? Do you remember what that first book for the blind was?
The Days of Anna Madrigal.
Did it feel, when you did it feel like, first of all, what made you go, I'm going to do this? And then was there some little light bulb that went off that said,
Barbara Rosenblatt. Okay. Barbara Rosenblatt. I was listening to the Lisa Scottolini. I've been listening to audiobooks for years and years and years, since I lived in LA, like years and years and years. I know everyone says that. We all say we listened since they started. But I listened since they started. But I never really understood that, I didn't have a feeling that I was allowed to do what I loved to do. I thought my whole life that I had to pay the devil and spend most of my day doing what normal people did. And then I could only do what I loved to do on the side. And I still believed that. But my job was horrible. It was merciless. My boss would call me in and tell me what a piece of shit I was for about 2 or 3 hours a day. And just personal, every aspect of my personality, or if I succeeded, he would tell me it was not a success. Why did I feel the need to do that? He hated me. So I was feeling at the very low part, but I'm still going out doing sitcoms and burlesque and every night, and I was still living this double life. And I thought, I'm going to do it. And I looked on Amazon for microphones like we do, and looked on voiceover artist agencies at these amazing people's demos. And then I was listening to this book, and I thought, I can do that. And I listened to Barbara on the tube on the way to the audition. And I went in there and I did it. I auditioned and he hired me. And I walked out that day. And I remember I like jumped up and down in the alley, called my friend at the corporate job, and I said, it was the only time in my life I've ever thought, I'm going to do this, and I don't care if everyone hates me. I'm still going to do it, no matter if anyone thinks I can or not. I'm going to do it. And
then how long from that first for the Royal School for the Blind, or what was that? What was the trajectory of you then actually starting to get to do it more as a career?
I got made, the job went from worse to worse, and I was so stressed. Note to people, if you're having unexplained injuries and illnesses, plus you have a stressful job, guess what? It's the job. So I was falling and fracturing bones a lot. Like I would just fall and I was hurting myself. And I was like, the job was horrible. And I went there with a fractured pelvis consistent, and this is what the doctor said, with having fallen out of a plane or a severe car accident. And I still went to that job because I was afraid of getting in trouble. And they made me redundant. And I thought, well, I'm home. So I can't remember how it happened. I know I reached out to Andrea Ems, and she said, go to Sean Pratt. And I went to Sean Pratt, and I've never ever, and he said, I know so many people that quit right at the last minute when they could be making a breakthrough, but they quit. And he said, it's sad, but he said, that is the hard part, is hanging on. And so I said, I'm going to hang on and nothing's going to stop me. And I still am. I'm going to hang. I had an experience. I did a multicast, and I don't read my reviews. I don't read my reviews. Somebody else reads them. If there's an important feedback I need, then we give it to each other in a professional way. But this is a multicast, which I don't do a lot of, aside from me and like a guy or something. And I play a very unlikable character. Very unlikable character. Like, she goes crazy in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so guess what I did? I checked. I thought, I got to check this review. And I don't know, I think I'm only saying this because I swore to myself I wouldn't say anything that was raw and the truth. So of course I'm going to blurt it out. But in case anybody here can understand, you don't look for the good ones alongside the bad ones. You only notice the one person that but I was astounded because all the reviews are about the characters, like they're living, breathing people. Most of them aren't even thinking that we're narrators, which to me is an ultimate compliment. But then there was the one person that said, I just don't like her. And my brain went, nobody likes me. It's not fair. I don't sound like the normal person. They want a normal girl, and I'm not normal, and they're never going to like me. And what is wrong with my life that nobody likes me? It wasn't even just maybe I'm not a good narrator. It was nobody likes me. And
yeah,
I went to a dark place, and still, and I know better, 200 phone calls of people telling me that they know how that feels and don't do it. But I don't
100%.
know. I mean, have you stopped? Do you ever do that? Or have you completely gotten over it?
You mean the reviews or the
going to a dark place for anything? A moment, a chink.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I suffer from imposter syndrome worse than you can imagine. But, it's so funny you mentioned a review like that. I got a review today for a book, 1 star, that basically said, this is the worst narrator I've ever heard. Something like that. It was the same book that just got Audible Best of 2023. Exact same book. So you cannot win. You cannot please everybody. And you've got to. I think that what you're saying about having someone read them. I do read reviews. I do process them. I've made a rule for myself that I read the good ones twice and I'll read the bad ones once. So to make myself let them
That's
resonate.
smart.
We're talking about me and we're not going to do that. So, but I recognize what you're saying. And yes, it's very hard to sort of just shake it off and not let it get into you. So, okay. So I find something I do find interesting about you is you're such a buoyant, positive, joyous person. You obviously like humor. You obviously love, you liked clowning. You relate to that in your life. And yet you seem to market yourself and be drawn to psychological thrillers, darker characters, suspense. You said your favorite book that you've done is Frankenstein. I don't know if that's changed, but so, your it's like this flip side of the coin. What makes you, considering that you are someone who is definitely a glass half full person or strives to that, what do you think makes you want to explore those characters or hope those books come to you?
I think it's the same as the voice body thing. I think it's the same thing. I like extremes. I like excitement. I think some people, you know how some people need really strong tastes before they can taste something, and some people can eat like bland food and they can like taste even like a pinch of salt. Like, I think some people are just made, they need more to make them feel. And I need more. I need scary, thrilling. I need to guess. I need to be interested. I need strong flavors, strong alcohol. Not that I drink a lot, but strong everything, strong emotions, black and white. Not, it screws me up a lot, but I like the excitement. I love weird books with gritty characters and I love that. I loved this book. She went
Yeah.
crazy and I felt her every step of the way. Like I was getting paranoid about people in my life because I love that. I love the extremes.
Um, do you find that most of the work you get is the kind of work you want to do?
I find that I learned a big lesson and I took charge. I get the work I want because I don't any longer only count the work that comes from other people. So a few years ago, I noticed, because as it does, I think you go in different stages. And I think there was a stage where I was getting a lot of nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I can pronounce big words. I can do nonfiction. I have very few pickups and I'm good at it, if I'm honest. But, but I love thrillers. So I
Mm-hmm.
contacted some of the best thriller writers I know, and I worked out deals to do their books with understanding about their flexibility or maybe current financial situation. I'm in control of my portfolio. And if I don't like what I see, then it's me. I'm not this person that's just sitting here waiting for the market to tell me who I am. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you do that, guess what? You're not going to be who you want to be. You're going to be one of a multitude. So I took charge and I'm really happy I did. And I do feel much more in control of my work. I choose what goes on there and I'll still do the nonfiction. I can afford to do, I've been doing the romance and nonfiction. That's fine. It's a nice break. It changes things, but I still have these really heavy, hardcore thrillers and psychological thrillers every like third book scheduled. And that sings to my heart. You have to want to get in the booth, or why are you doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's very admirable. I honestly, it's something I wish I was better at, and I think it's amazing to hear that you do it and it succeeded for you. What's the hardest thing about this job for you?
It's I think we all get to an age, some sooner than others, where call it a midlife crisis or whatever, and all the stupid memes. She's just done putting up with stuff. You know, she's going to say it like it is. She doesn't care. And we all get to that stage. And you look at your life. My parents are now gone. So it's just me. What do I want it to look like? There's no one to blame but me right now. And I only have, we always only have a little bit left. But that comes straight up in your face when your parents go, how little bit you have. And I want to be me, right? I want to be me, but not like a meme, not the way that looks on Facebook and social media, like the, I'm going to be me. And, you know, this is me wearing a colorful pink pop of a sweater because I'm an older woman that's comfortable with myself, despite what society thinks. Not that. I want to be me, but this job wants to judge you. Every artistic job, you're playing for an audience, and an audience is made up of everyone, and everyone is the herd, and they are society, and they want you to be a certain way. So how do you marry being completely authentically yourself and not noticing if yourself isn't the popular self? I'm not the girl that a lot of people want to hear. I literally have had people walk up to me in line at pubs and places and on buses and tell me to shut up, that they can't stand my voice. So, because I'm who I am, I'm loud, I'm Italian, and so the hardest part of this job is not to have it be really personal and hit you in a really deep way when you're struggling, because you want to be yourself and you know that yourself can do amazing things, and you get slapped in the face for being yourself. And nobody personally, but you are constant. It's the nature of the job. You're constantly slapped in the face. And so it is really, really hard. And you have to be really strong not to let your brain go to, what would life be like if I was such and such age with a nice little vocal fry at the end of every sentence and a snarky voice? What could I get away with then? You know what I mean? Hard not to, like, you get regrets anyway when you get a certain age. It's hard to compete because it is competition. But we're a wonderful community. We love each other. You're an artist. Every job you do, you're competing. You are. In a nice way. Competition isn't a bad thing. You're competing for a place in the world. But you have to be so happy with yourself to do this job. You have to.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. What is good? How do you know you're not like the worst? My friend said to me the other day, what if you're horrible? What if you are horrible? What if you're not a good actress? Because if you were an actor, right? You know that the biggest fear in your heart is, what if I'm a bad actor?
What if I'm actually bad? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my biggest fear.
And today is the day people figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they've all known it all along, but they liked me because I'm charming. Nobody wants to hurt my feelings. Yeah. And she said, what if you're bad? You pay your rent. You wouldn't want to do any other job, would you? So what if you're bad? What Andy Warhol says, so what?
Does it with that stuff rattling around in your head, and plus the fact that you're dealing with dark material very often, is it sometimes hard to push through in the booth? Do you have burnout days? Do you have days where you have a really hard time meeting your quota? How do you is that a struggle for you sometimes with those inner voices and difficult material that's emotionally taxing, or are you able to separate those?
Yeah, no, I've got Hillary Huber's voice in my head. I'm not missing a deadline.
Get it done. Get it done. Absolutely. Do you think, you were talking about the fact that, being told, getting those messages about you're too loud, I don't like your voice, things like that. I mean, and it's fascinating because I do resonate with, I have first of all, I get called ma'am all the time on the phone. I sound like gay Kermit, like that when you get messages about the way you sound, going into this business is a leap. It's very weird. And it, you may not recognize this, but it does mean you're a hell of a fucking actor, Daniela, because if your voice is not what people think of as narrator voice, succeeding in this business means you're a fucking good actor, because that's what people are connecting to and hearing. So let that sit with you. But I'm wondering if, you talked about the fact that you were kind of a separate kid, kind of on your own, as was I. Um, and do you think, have you always felt a little bit of an outsider? Is that those messages of, we don't want to be around you, we don't want to hear your voice? Did that happen to you as a kid? Were you the one off in your own corner in your imaginary world? What was that? What were you like as a kid?
I fought. I thought they were idiots. I hated them. The girls that called me and my sister over to explain how they could fix me. They could feather my hair and help me get proper socks, and they could fix me, and then people would maybe like me and I wouldn't be so ugly. And I think I told them, Kathy in Wuthering Heights would never do that. And I stomped off, and I told the smokers in front of the building that my mother said they were going to die of lung cancer. I didn't have a clue that there was a social thing I was supposed to fit into. So I told everyone, because in my books, I knew what was, unfortunately, most of my books, my mother was a teacher, were from the 1950s, homemaking books. So my idea of what you should be was a little outdated, but I told people they were wrong. I told people that I was a geek, but I luckily was in my own world and didn't know I was a geek. I thought they were stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of am suspecting that I might have been right.
What did you want to be? Did you know what you wanted to be?
An actress.
Always?
Always. I used to read Scavullo on beauty. He had all those big books, and he would interview like Bianca Jagger and Brooke Shields, and it's the most beautiful book on earth. I pored over those pages and those lifestyle. They would have been influencers these days. And I studied what they had for breakfast. I was going to be perfect. I had spreadsheets when I was 8. I was going to be perfect. It was the plan. I'm still working on it.
I was thinking about this. You could turn these interviews into a hell of a book. You really could. You could turn these interviews into pulling quotes from people about various topics of this art form. You could, and
like a coffee table book with a big photo of each person.
Who of us wouldn't give you permission to do it? And
that'd be fun.
It could, because there are those books on actor. I had a book when I was a kid of actors on acting that was this fucking thick of just quotes from actors about the art form. Is there anything you wish you were better at saying no about? There are times that I tell myself I should say no, right? Mm-hmm.
But I've gotten better at it recently. And I've learned to let go of the need for people not to be mad at me. But I'm good at saying no, but I'm not good when they come back. I'm not good when people don't take no. And then then I just want to give up. But I do too much because I cannot stand.
That's pretty clear. That's pretty clear.
No, but too much in the sense that if I'm working on a duel and there's a problem and the other narrator maybe not responding, and I don't think everyone gets it, I'm the one that everyone hates. It sends the detailed email explaining what we should all be doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
The teacher's pet annoying.
I'm that person too. I hate dual narration for that reason. It's like group projects in high school. It's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And
you do more because you want it done. So you end up doing it all. Well, I'm not saying I do it all, but
Are there moments in life you wish you'd said yes to something and you didn't?
No, I always say yes to everything. I do. I always say yes to everything. I don't think I've ever said no.
Who are your biggest mentors? Who do you go, if this person hadn't come into my life, I would never have found who I am.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that's not fair because there's so many people. I don't get close to people. So I have a lot of those people. And each one of them has taught me something different in a different way. I mean, Johnny Heller and Joanna Perrin, like
Hmm.
basically they're my cool kids. I'm like that. I follow them around and like beg for their attention. I just think they're so cool. I can't even act like it's an equal relationship because I'm so in awe with both of them. I think they're amazing. I've learned so much from them. Anna Clements, there's just so many. Karen, there's just so many. There's a list of like 50 people that like I love and that have profoundly changed me.
But
So I
going
can't
back,
pick.
going back, like let's go back like 30, 40 years. Who were those formative people that you go, I needed them in my life? Or can you not think of any?
Yeah, no, I've been very independent. I didn't get attached to people. And I can't think of any. Isn't that sad? I can't think of
No,
any. I mean, my
no.
family, obviously, my husband, obviously, but besides that, no.
Um, Somebody asked, I think this is an interesting question, that it seems to them, because you relate so well to people on a personal basis, that you'd be a good audiobook director. Is that something you've ever thought about? Is that something that interests you?
I directed in the theater a few times. This is the thing, and I know it's horrible, and it is not true. It is a hang up. It is just my hang up. Do not quote me on this. If anyone does,
Huh.
I will point to this part of the video. I have such an ego issue with being in a support role because my whole life, being the person that could do things quite quickly, people always relied on me. And I ended up getting all the admin, all the responsibility, all the mentoring, all the coaching, all the hiring and firing. And I became resentful. And so being a narrator, I think, means so much to me because I'm so embarrassed. I'm going to say this on camera. I want to be a star. I don't want to be the guy behind the camera, not because I respect them more than anything in the world. I love them. They're my people, but I've spent my whole life doing the admin and the work.
Supporting.
Yeah,
Supporting. Yeah.
I want to be the star. It feels like I'm being told to do other jobs. It feels like I'm being told, oh, but you could always do the lighting.
Ha!
And I love the lighting. I love it. But you see, you can't say that without sounding like you're dissing a whole
No.
side of the industry, and I'm not.
No, 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 no. I understand exactly what you're saying. I understand
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. You spent a very large part of your life bolstering other people so they could succeed,
Yeah.
and you want that opportunity. Um, and the one thing I will say to counter that, at least if you ever decided to think about it, was, as someone who teaches, what I've now learned is the amount of pride you get when someone you have helped foster does succeed, does resonate in a very similar way. Like
Oh, yeah.
when my students are getting Audie nominations or SOVAs nominations or whatever, it does feed that part of you in a different way. But I totally relate to it. I totally get it. What's the hardest book you've ever had to narrate, and why? What was like the one that you were like, I don't know.
It was the one I did on one leg. It was nonfiction. I had pages and pages. I had to look up out of every 3 words, I had to look up 2 of them.
Oh
And
God.
it comes like at 10 hours. And it was a beautiful, meaningful, important book, but it was full of words, 20 million words describing an amoeba. It was like so hard. And I learned from it and I liked it, but physically with a fracture, and I wasn't taking painkillers because I couldn't get to the hospital because I couldn't get out of the flat without having an ambulance carry. And this is the thing. I was not going to be carried out of this flat on a stretcher. There was no way. My
Yeah.
pride was not letting me do that. So it was the hardest book I've ever done in my entire life. I can't believe I finished it. I can't believe it.
What's the one you're most proud of?
Isn't that horrible? Like, isn't it, you got it? Like, I could tell any of my friends, "Oh my God, amazing books!" But when it's your own, the one I did, I think it's called "Keep Your Friends Close" with a multicast. Um,
I love
Candace
Leanne.
Fitzgerald, Leanne Woodward, and Stephanie Nemeth Parker was amazing, amazing character. And somebody said, and I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever read. They've never met a group of less likable people in their entire life than the characters in this book. And it was such a ride. It was such a ride. It was amazing. I enjoyed it so much, and they were so amazing and lovely.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, they were amazing.
Okay, another couple other questions from the group. So, without naming names or going into particulars, have you ever gotten a gig, a narration gig, or another gig that you immediately regretted agreeing to take? What did you do? Did you soldier through? Did you back out of it? What did you change your name and enter the witness protection program? What did you do?
I had no boundaries when I first started narrating, and I had one writer. I had hundreds of phone calls. I submitted the book with clear understanding there would be no changes, and she was rewriting it word for word, hundreds of requests for changes, and I'd do one and then she'd request another, and I had no boundaries. I had no boundaries. And it was my father's funeral. I got off the plane for my father's funeral and there were like 20 messages. So I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn the hard way to not. So those books, I think there were a few after that I saw trouble coming at the 15-minute stage. Like there was one writer that would just like literally make up things to correct in the sample, but you got the feeling it was like her chance to be mean to someone. I learned really quickly. So now I changed what I did from that point on. I might be a bitch actually, but I'm very, very clear. I thought if I work with an author directly, not a publisher, I send them a welcome pack that couldn't be more clear. It's friendly, it's professional, and it's clear. And I say that if you are not 100% happy with the sample, I'll do it again. I'll take your feedback. We've got to get this right at the sample because it's the last time we're going to talk. And my goal is you are 100% happy. And if you're not, then we need to part ways. And I've done it quite a bit after that. I won't do it. I won't get in that mental game anymore.
That's so smart. I think that's imperative. Another quick question from someone: sequins or animal print?
Both. Of course, both. How do you choose? They're two totally different style scenarios, both. Sequins on top of animal print.
If you could narrate for any author that had a book coming out, alive or dead, what author? Who would it be?
Sean Inman. Sean Inman. I love the Middle Falls time travel books. Love those. And Harlan Coben, obviously. And yeah, but actually, even more than that, a couple of the writers, the one book I'm doing, I'm not going to say, because another thing I've learned is do not say out loud a great book that you have directly with an author until it is out. Because several times I've had them, oh, sorry, it's now with the publisher, and then I've lost the book. Right. So now I don't say a word until it's out. But yeah, there are a few that I'm working on now that I'm so proud of, that they are dream writers. And maybe not to other people, but I think they're dream writers.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
I am honest with myself, and I make myself change all the time. I am completely open, and I have really honest conversations. I don't lie to myself. I'm not in denial about things. I do hard things to make myself change. I'm not very good at being happy with like the status quo. I need to learn that. But because I'm honest with myself, I'm honest with my friends. And I feel that maybe I've put good energy out, and hopefully that will stay and help people. I hope. I want energy. I want energy. I want good energy. I want it to come out in the books. I want it to touch you guys. I want my energy I want to use that stardust and not waste it. So
I don't think anyone who has ever come into contact with you would doubt that you've accomplished that. Um, Another quick question from someone was, I love this one. What's your strangest possession?
Well, from the way people are reacting, I'd say my virtual reality headset, because everyone acts like it's weird.
All
To me, it's
right.
like the best thing on earth. But yeah, everything else is just glitter and faux fur, and that's not strange.
What is the most amazing piece of clothing you've ever owned?
Oh, I have a dress that is gold sequins, full length, bottom to the top, complete, and it's like steel. It's like sci-fi meets burlesque meets Christmas. Yeah, that's the best.
All right. So we have been talking for somewhat over an hour, so we should probably start to wrap up, even though I hate to because I could talk to you forever. So what I wanted to do, first of all, is I'm going to ask you, I thought since you're such a brilliant interviewer, I thought it would be fitting to ask you the famous questions that Bernard Pivot and James Lipton asked on Inside the Actors Studio. So I thought that would be fun to do. So, Daniela, what is your favorite word?
Undeniable.
What is your least favorite word?
Appropriate.
Uh, you're doing very well at these. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Glamour. For all of
Um,
them.
I think we could have guessed that one actually. What sound or noise do you love?
Uh, my bird talking.
That's awesome. What kind of bird is it?
He's a budgie and he says full sentences. Mommy loves you. What are you doing? You okay?
Oh, what's your favorite curse word?
Well, it's a phrase. You're getting on my tits.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, come on, let's just say it. Construction. Those jack drills and hammers and leaf blowers and construction. Basically, I basically told them that I was going to murder them at one point.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, God. Music, pretty much any kind.
If you had to choose a profession than your own, what would you like to attempt?
I'd like to make those I swear it's going to be big soon, guys. The virtual reality meditation worlds are created. They're not just pictures. They're like coded in, and you can create any part of the entire world, and somebody could put a headset on and be in that part of the world. It's like, I want to learn how to design those. I think I could be good at that.
I bet
I'd
you
have to
would.
learn something about computers.
What profession would you hate?
Anything where I have to go to an office.
I get that. If you were reincarnated as some other plant or animal, what would it be?
Oh, a bird, because they talk.
That makes sense. If heaven exists, What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You've come to the wrong place.
um, all right. And now, the question that I think everyone is anticipating, I will ask you. What one piece of wisdom would you like to leave your audience?
Oh crap! I should have seen this one coming. Thought of
It fucking sucks, doesn't it, girlfriend? See what it's like?
um. Do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Tell yourself, so what? And do it anyway.
That's great. All right. I have to tell you, this has been an absolute joy. I love that we've gotten to know you after you have made it such a passion of your life to let us get to know others. I think that you have no idea the amount of appreciation and joy and admiration and love that this community has for you, and the deep and very profound service you have done to us all and committed in such a deep way to making us feel heard and creating, as I said, an archive of art and the process of art. And we are all very grateful. And thank you for letting me have a chance to do this with you. And you're brilliant at what you do, and we love you.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question?
Just one.
Are you ever going to start interviewing yourself? You're bloody brilliant at this.
I like moderating panels. I don't think I would have I would love to. I don't have the time, but I do.
Yeah.
I like understanding people's process in mind. So thank you. That means a lot. I feel very lucky that I've been picked out of the hat to do this.
You're
It was a great
amazing.
privilege.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Bye.
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 Love.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, my love.
Bye.